Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be starting with something very foundational to psychology, and it's the concept of learning. And it's chapter 5. Now, normally you'd think that, well, why don't we start with 1 and just work the whole way through the book? And that's a good thing to do. To get us started, though, for the semester, I wanted to start with something uh, basic but very fundamental to the study of general psychology, and that's the concept of learning here. So let's just get the PowerPoint going here, and you'll be able to follow along with me. Now, this chapter explains how humans and other animals learn. It covers the 3 basic types of learning: classical conditioning, operant conditioning, and cognitive learning. Now, for this video only, this PowerPoint only, I'm just going to be doing classical conditioning today. And we'll get to operant conditioning and cognitive learning next time. So here's our introduction here. And Bart the Bear, here's a picture of Bart, famous movie actor. But let's talk about a few things here, and then we'll get back. Now, this is on your study guide here. Learning. Learning is relatively enduring or permanent change in behavior or knowledge that results from previous experience with certain stimuli and responses. Now let's break all this down here and make this all clear. So the definition of learning is it's a relatively enduring or permanent change in behavior or knowledge. So it's permanent or it's long-lasting, enduring, and it's in behavior or knowledge. And it results from previous experience with certain stimulus, and your responses to the stimulus. Now, you might not know what those last couple words are, but we will be getting into that, and you'll know that here shortly. But back to Bart the Bear. So you can see the bear was raised from a cub by humans. He learned 45 behaviors from the use of specific learning principles and even became a movie star. Now, that's another kind of conditioning. We're going to get into that next time. That's called operant conditioning. And there's 3 types of learning, or 3 ways people learn. And there's classical conditioning, which is what we're doing today, operant conditioning, which we'll do next time. And that's more about Bart the Bear doing that. And then next time we'll get into cognitive learning too. But today we're just focusing, and this PowerPoint here is on classical conditioning. And we're going to use the, not going to show the video here, but we're going to be talking about the dog and the food, and Pavlov's famous experiment when it comes to that. Okay, classical conditioning is a type of associative learning that involves making connections between 2 events. And this is on the study guide here. So again, classical conditioning is a type of associative learning. We'll get into associations here on the next slide. Associative learning that involves making connections between 2 events. Now, this next paragraph here about classical conditioning, I know you're just beginning psychology. I know this might not make any sense to you. But by the time we're done today, you're going to know all these terms, and you're going to know what this means. So classical conditioning pairs a neutral stimulus, something that naturally causes a response called the unconditioned response, with a novel stimulus, a new non-related event called an unconditioned stimulus, to effectively produce the same result, now called the conditioned response, without the original neutral stimulus being present. Only the new stimulus is needed. It's now called the conditioned stimulus. Okay, now I get it. These terms, neutral stimulus, unconditioned response, unconditioned stimulus, conditioned response, conditioned stimulus, I mean, they might not make any sense to you right here. But I'm going to break these down one at a time, and by the time we get to the end, you'll have a pretty good understanding of what all these terms are. All right, but let's start with associative. Now, associative learning is the formation of simple, should be associations. This is on your study guide. The formation of simple associations between stimuli and response. And okay, now we're back to this. What's a stimuli and what's a response? We'll get to that in the next slide. Now, the two forms of associative learning are classical and operant conditioning. So this is stimulus and response learning. So associative learning, it is an association, it's a pairing, it's a connection between the stimulus and response. Now, what are response? A stimulus is a thing or event that evokes a reaction. A stimulus is a thing or an event that evokes a reaction. So this is something that happens, and it gets a reaction out of someone, something, whatever. It just gets a reaction. Stimulus you get stimulated, you react to it. Now, response is an action or reaction to the stimulus. So a response is an action or a reaction to the stimulus. So again, you get stimulated and you just get a response to the stimulus. Now, another term I want to throw in here is an antecedent. This is an event that precedes a response. So you get the stimulus, it's an event, something that happens before the response. Now, an antecedent, something that comes before, is we can look at it like if you've ever had these or know about these Russian nested dolls, where there's a big wooden doll on the outside and you open that up and there's a smaller version of it inside that, and you open that one up and there's a smaller version inside that, and so on and so forth till you get down to the core. But you've got to keep opening the dolls up before you get to the core. And so there's a lot of dolls that come before you get to the core. Those are all antecedents before you get to the core. And then another term is the consequences. And these are effects that follow a response. So little Miss Muffet, she sat on a tuffet eating her curds and whey. And along came a spider and sat down beside her and frightened Miss Muffet away. So the consequences of seeing the scary spider to her was she lost her curds and whey. She dropped them. Don't know anything about the consequences to the little boy that scared her, but there usually are consequences to behaviors and actions. Now, this is the most important concept when it comes to classical conditioning. This is the magic word. You remember this word, you will never get mixed up between classical conditioning and what we get into next time, operant conditioning. That's got its own magic word. But you just remember this one word here, and you will know what classical conditioning is all about. And the magic word, like in this slide here, is reflex. The magic word for classical conditioning is reflex. A reflex is an innate automatic response to a stimulus. Let's break this down. Innate is inborn. You're just born with it. And automatic means it just happens. You don't have to think about it. Okay, so that's a reflex. That's a reflex response to a stimulus. Now, you go to the doctor and he wants to check your reflexes. So he takes his rubber hammer and he taps the lower front part of your knee, and what's the reflex do? Well, it kicks your leg out. He's checking your reflex. That's a reflex response. You didn't have to think about it. It was automatic. You didn't have to go, okay, well, the doctor hit my lower part of my kneecap here with his hammer. I guess I need to kick my leg out. No, it just happens. It's a reflex response. He's checking your reflexes. Another reflex, by the way, too, is like the hot or burn reflex, where you jerk yourself away, jerk a body part away, whatever, like you're walking on hot sand. and you're going, ouch, 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 and you're going really fast, uh, like at the beach or something. That's a reflex response. Uh, Another way to put it is you could be just getting something ready to put on the stove. So you turn the burner on an electric stove. And then all of a sudden your phone rings and it's your friend. It's something real important you got to talk about. And you forget to turn the burner on. And you lean up against the stove and you put your hand down on the burner. And what do? You jerk your hand away. That was a burn or hot reflex there. It was just automatic. You didn't have to think about it. You didn't have to go through a series of steps where you put your hand on the burner, on the hot burner, and you go, gee, I smell something burning. That smells like hamburger. Oh, it's me. It's my hand. My hand is on the burner. I had forgotten I'd turned this burner on. I guess I better move my hand away. You didn't have to go through that series of sequence of events, of steps. You just automatically moved your hand away. Okay, so reflex, the magic word when it comes to classical conditioning is reflex. And we'll get to what the magic word is when it comes to operant conditioning next time. All right, a little more background on classical conditioning. It's a form of learning in which reflex responses are associated with a new stimuli. So it's the same response as a reflex response, but the stimulus is new. It could be in the example I just gave you with the hot stove. It could be extreme cold, where you put your hand on dry ice or something, and you jerk your hand away because it's so cold. So that's a whole different stimulus, but you're going to get the same reflex response. All right, and it was invented by Ivan Pavlov, who lived from 1849 to 1936. Now this graphic here probably shows the actual experiment. So I'm going to go through the actual experiment with you. And it might not make sense to you. It might, hopefully it will. But just understand, I'm going to break the whole thing down for you a piece at a time. I'm just not going to go through the whole actual experiment. You go, okay, well now you learned about classical conditioning. I'm going to break this down. I'm going to go through the whole thing with you here. Okay. So in the original experiment, Pavlov, people knew that whenever you presented food to dogs, that they drooled or they salivated. And Pavlov could measure that. Now, somehow he got curious about if he could train or condition the dog to elicit that drool response with another stimulus. So what he did was he rang a bell, and obviously the dog did nothing. I mean, there's no food there. You present the food to the dog drools. But you ring a bell, nothing happens. Might just annoy the dog or something. Okay, well what he did was he did associative learning, where he showed the dog the food and he rang the bell. So the dog drooled, but the dog was drooling to the food. That was his reflex response. That was his natural automatic response to the food. So present the food, ring the bell, the dog drools. Present the food, ring the bell, the dog drools. Now, then what he did was just ring the bell. And guess what? The dog drooled and the food wasn't there. So he conditioned the dog. He got the same response, but he used a new stimulus. Instead of the food, he could get the reflex response from ringing the bell. Now, what I'm going to do is we're going to a piece at a time here. And plus, I'm going to give you the scientific psychological terms for this too. Okay, so this, and I'm going to go through this just regular first without the terms again, because repetition is the key to learning. And then I'm going to go back and we'll put the psychological conditioning, classical conditioning terms to these. All right, now, before conditioning, just regular, just natural, you give a dog food and the dog salivates, the dog drools. Okay, so, but nothing going on yet. This is just natural. Present food to the dog, dog drools. Okay, now, and also before conditioning, step 2, where I don't know why they have a whistle here. I thought it was a bell, but whatever, it's a sound. Blow the whistle, ring the bell. Dog does nothing. There's no salivation. Doesn't know what that's for, what you're doing, probably doesn't care. All right, now the conditioning part. You're conditioning now, where you present the food and you ring the bell, and the dog drools. But it's not a one-time thing. You keep doing it. Every time you feed the dog, scientifically, this is an experiment, you got to ring the bell, but the dog is drooling to the food. So that's how you're conditioning him during conditioning. Now, after the conditioning has occurred, you blow the whistle or ring the bell, and the dog drools. But notice, there's no food here. There's no food here. He's just drooling now to the bell. He's been conditioned to just elicit a reflex response to the sound. All right, now let's go back, start at number 1 again. And we're going to put the psychological, scientific terms to classical conditioning in here. So the food, which causes the salivation or the drooling in number 1, the food is the unconditioned stimulus. There you go. That's a stimulus. It's something that elicits a response. And the unconditioned response, remember, we haven't done anything conditioned yet. This is just natural. It's for the dog to be salivating or drooling. And that's his natural response to the stimulus, which is the food. So he's just doing what comes naturally. So the food would be the unconditioned stimulus because we're number 1, we're before conditioning, no conditioning going on. And it's eliciting the unconditioned response because no conditioning, nothing going on yet. This is all just natural. And now also number 2, before conditioning, still, now we introduce the whistle or the bell. And you ring the bell, you blow the whistle, whatever, but there's no salivating. Now, the bell or the whistle here in this case is the neutral stimulus. It doesn't do anything. It's just neutral. And so it's called the neutral stimulus. It's not eliciting a response. And there's no response going on. So there's just no conditioned response going on here with the dog, no salivating. All right, number 3. Now, this is during conditioning. The dog is being conditioned here, classical conditioned here, where you blow the whistle, you ring the bell, you present the food, the dog is salivating. So at this case, you're pairing, this is an association now, you're pairing the neutral stimulus with the unconditioned stimulus. Now, the dog is still eliciting the unconditioned response to the food, but you do this over and over and over and over again. And then you go to step 4, which is now after conditioning. The dog has been conditioned. Okay, so you ring the bell, you blow the whistle. That is now the conditioned stimulus. That is the trained stimulus. And the dog now drools or salivates to the conditioned stimulus. So that's called the conditioned response. He has been conditioned to respond to that new stimulus. Same reflex action, different stimulus though. All right, now I'm even going to, repetition is the key to learning. I'm going to maybe beat this to death or something, but we're going to even break apart a little bit more just so I make sure you get it. These terms. All right, so the unconditioned stimulus is the doggy biscuit. It's a stimulus innately capable of eliciting a response. This is on your study guide. So you have the doggy biscuit here, or it could be a pepperoni or whatever. But just by itself, you get the natural response, which is the unconditioned response. And I know some dogs are just droolers. Okay, but then there's other dogs that just, they don't normally drool, but if they're hungry and you show them some food, then they'll drool, as long as other behaviors. But the unconditioned response, no conditioning going on yet, no classical conditioning going on yet. This is just natural. It's an innate reflex response, innate, just a reflex, they're born with this reflex to the unconditioned stimulus. Show them food, they'll drool. Now, the bell or the whistle, the sound, that's a neutral stimulus. It just does nothing. It doesn't evoke a response, doesn't do anything. You ring the bell, dog doesn't react. Ring the bell, might get annoyed, but that's about it. All right, now the conditioning comes in. Conditioned stimulus. It's a stimulus that evokes a response because it is repeatedly paired or associated with an unconditioned stimulus. So you ring the bell and while you're presenting the food. So this is the conditioned stimulus now, and you're pairing that, you're associating that with the unconditioned stimulus. And you get the conditioned response, which is a learned response elicited by a conditioned stimulus. So now you just ring the bell and the dog drools. So he's been conditioned. So this is now the conditioned stimulus and you're getting the conditioned response. Putting this another way, when I was young, we used to have a dinner bell, something like this bell here. And because, back in those days, when you were little, you'd go outside and play with your friends, and you'd be all over the neighborhood, doing stuff with your friends. Don't know about today. You'd probably be in the house on a video game or on somebody's computer or the iPads or whatever. But back in the day, we used to just, go all over the neighborhood. And my mother long ago gave up just yelling for us. So we would have a dinner bell and she would just ring the bell. And if I knew she was making something good like pizza or something, I'd get hungry, and I'd start drooling and I'd head home. So that's just another example of this here. Now, I do have another video in the folder of me going through this actual process with my dog Voki. So you can either stop the video here if you want and go look at the video of me and Voki in the material folder and see this actual process going on. Or you can wait till the end and you can watch the video there too if you want. Certainly your choice. But either way, just make sure you watch the video because, yeah, I'm explaining it, but I'm actually doing it too. So those of you that are leaving now to go see the video, we'll catch up with you when you get back. Okay, now, welcome back to those of you that took the time to go to see the video. And again, there's people that'll watch this whole PowerPoint presentation through, and then they'll go see the video, I'm sure. But either way, make sure you go see the video. But let me give you some classical conditioning examples in real life. Let me make this real to you. How does this work in real life? Well, let's talk about like very unfortunate automobile accidents. So you could be up on 77. All of a sudden, things start backing up, and you go, "Oh, there's an accident." And you go down to one lane, and you arrive at the accident scene, and maybe the rescue forces are there already, but it's a horrible, bloody accident. And if you're driving, you might try to glance over, but things are so backed up, you really got to keep your eyes on the road, on the car in front of you, and just go slow and keep your mind on what you're doing. But you glance over, but if you're a passenger, you might be rubbernecking a whole lot looking over there, but it might be really bad and really bloody, and you go, "Oh my God, oh, that makes me feel sick to my stomach. Oh, I can't bear to watch." See, that's a reflex response you're getting. It's making you feel sick to your stomach. You want to turn away. You don't even want to look at that. So you've been conditioned to avoid that because it produces very unpleasant functions in your body because of your reflexes there. The same could be like when you go to a funeral home. People have told me when they walk into a funeral home, they've told me about different reactions. Some start crying, That's their reflex response. They just feel very sad. Uh, I've known of people that have felt sick to their stomach too, walking into a funeral home. And you're not even thinking about this. This is just a reflex response. It just happens. You've been conditioned that way. A death scene. I don't know if you've ever been in the presence of a dead person or a dead body, but I have. And um, people have different reactions there too. Some people it makes them feel sick. Uh, some people are crying hysterically there. Me, I just had a job to do, so yeah, I had some emotional responses and thought back to the death of people I knew. But again, I had a job to do, so I just did my job. But a death scene can affect a person's natural reactions. Food poisoning. So you eat tainted food or bad food or something, and you get a very violent reflex reaction. What is that reflex reaction? You probably know that. You throw it up. That's a very violent. You didn't have to think about throwing up. It just happened. Our song. This is a much more pleasant and positive one. Maybe you've had this experience. You're in the mall and walking down the mall, or maybe you walk into a big store or something, and they're playing background music, and you're really not paying attention to the background music. All of a sudden, they start playing this song, and you recognize it, and that's your song. Uh, it's a song that you've been paired with or associated with a loved one, and it brings back all these memories and all these feelings. Maybe it was like your first date, or your first dance, or your first kiss or something, and it brings back you feel warm and flush and fuzzy on the inside. But you don't have to think about that. That's all reflex responses there. You've been conditioned because of the experience in that song. The glaucoma test. Don't know if any of you have ever had the puffs of air in your eyes. Me, I go to Walmart, and yeah, I sit in a chair there and put my head in this vice grip or whatever it is, and then the optician there, she shoots this puff of air into my eyes to check the pressure for glaucoma. But I start blinking whenever she starts aiming, because it's not pleasant to me. I really don't like that, and I know it's just a puff of air. I know it's not like a baseball coming at me, or a rock thrown up on the street coming at my eye or something. I know it's just a puff of air, but boy, it's just real unpleasant. I got to force myself past that blink response. Okay, and then there's certain odors and fragrances where, and salespeople know this. You walk into one of the big stores, Macy's or Elder Beerman or Dillard's or whatever, and you're walking past the cosmetic counter, and they give you samples, and they're trying to evoke a reflex response with you. Wow, I like that. And the reflex response is reaching for your wallet. But anyway, so salespeople know about this. One that's not on here, getting back to food in a positive note, is like, whenever you go to a pizza place and you're really hungry for pizza, or you're just really hungry, period, and they bring that sizzling hot pizza out, what do? Just like the dog, you start to drool. Oh, that looks so good. So that's just conditioning. That's just classical conditioning. Now, a few other terms related to the study of classical conditioning: generalization, discrimination, spontaneous recovery, and extinction. Generalization is the tendency to react the same way to stimulus that's not exactly like the original one, but similar to it. So, in the Pavlov dogs experiment, it would be if you rang another kind of bell and the dog drooled. It wasn't the same exact bell he was trained on, but another bell. That would be generalization. He has generalized that bells mean he's going to get fed, so he starts drooling, which is different from discrimination, in which is when we learn to differentiate between the stimuli. like telling the difference between the sound of two different bells. Now that would be if you rang another bell to the dog and the dog did nothing. So that would be another neutral stimulus. And he is so discriminating that he knows that it's just this bell. It's not another bell. It's just this bell. So the difference is generalization. He might generalize that it's all bells, but discrimination is when it's only this bell. Okay, and then there's extinction, and extinction occurs when you have the conditioned stimulus is no longer paired with the unconditioned stimulus. So this would be if you keep ringing the bell and the dog's drooling initially, but you keep ringing the bell, but you don't give him food. So you ring the bell, but you don't give him food, ring the bell, don't give him food. Sooner or later, the dog's going to become unconditioned. The response is just going to go away. He's going to figure out, it's like, okay, well, I'm not getting food now. So he's not drooling anymore. It's become extinct. Now, spontaneous recovery is the tendency for an extinguished behavior to reoccur without any further conditioning. It doesn't last long, will not be as strong as the original. So spontaneous recovery would be if you're using extinction where you're just ringing the bell, but you don't present the food, ring the bell, don't present the food, ring the bell, don't present the food. And so the response becomes extinct. And then later on, after a period of time, just out of curiosity or whatever, you ring the bell and he starts drooling again. And then you ring the bell and he still drools. But that won't be very long. That won't be very long. But just the fact that he started drooling again, even after a period of time after it was extinct, that's spontaneous recovery. Now, this is a form of therapy. This is a legitimate form of therapy. This is called systematic desensitization. And the therapy part is someone that has anxiety or phobias or something. They try to help them with this. And what the steps are, you just practice relaxation for a period of time every day, and then you make a list of whatever triggers your anxiety. And then now the association and pairing is going on, is where you're moving through your steps that cause you anxiety, but you're trying to relax yourself too. So you're trying to change the stimuli to get the relaxation response. Now you can use not therapy, but you can use this too. I mean, like in terms of test anxiety, or you might have to get up in front of a group and present, and that can be very stressful and anxiety ridden too. So whenever you're studying for your test, when you feel the test anxiety coming on, I mean, it might help to just kind of stop, condition yourself, just take a deep breath, relax, okay, and then get back to studying. So, and in terms of getting up and presenting in front of people, same kind of thing. Whenever you're practicing, and you might start just taking time, take a deep breath, just relax, and then move on. So that when you have to take the actual test, or you have to do the actual presentation, you're going immediately to your steps of relaxation. So that's systematic desensitization there. That is a viable form of therapy. All right, one other thing in this PowerPoint presentation is adaptive values. This is taste aversion. Taste aversion occurs when you eat something, get sick afterwards, and you associate that food with the illness and consequently develop an aversion to it. So in other words, I don't know why it has to be pizza. I mean, everybody loves pizza, but I mean, maybe sometime you scarf down some food like pizza or something, and maybe it had nothing to do with the pizza. Maybe it wasn't food poisoning or nothing, but maybe you just had a stomach flu coming on, and you got violently sick thereafter. And then from that point on, boy, you just can't eat that food anymore. And you don't want to go to that fast food place anymore. Oh, I can't eat there anymore. I can't even stand to look at it anymore. Okay, so that you've been classically conditioned to get that reflex response. That's taste aversion. Okay, so you can stop the PowerPoint right here. This is the end of that. Next time we'll get into operant conditioning. And and again, if you haven't gone to see me do the actual classical conditioning with my cartoon dog Voki, please look at that video. And that'll do it for this one here.